I'm one of the founders of something called the Content Exchange. And the Content Exchange, in brief, it's a marketplace. And it's a marketplace for content. And more than a marketplace, it is in fact a way of a collaboration tool between publishers to share content between each other or with other parties looking for great content. I've worked in many publishing houses, always in the capacity of being a publisher. And what you could often see is that great content, but similar content, was being created at the same places. I worked with several editorial teams where we had two editors writing about the same iPhone release, but publishing it for two different brands. And the audience of these two brands never watched each other at each other's brand. So what we decided is that one of these editors could do other investigative journalism, and the other one, his articles could be published in two different platforms. That way, we had a much more efficiency concerning the output of a certain editor. And we, in fact, realized much more output because other editors could do and create new value, which wasn't there yet. This is a thing you will see large publishers do a lot, working together based on the content they already created and looking for all kinds of new opportunities for content to reach out for new audiences. When you're a smaller publisher or a mid-sized publisher, that's not that easy to do. And most of the content you create really for your own publication and sharing it with other publishers or finding new audiences for that content, it's a really hard thing to do. And what we've tried to do with the Content Exchange is make a platform which is open to all content creators and content owners to share content between each other. And I can show you how we do that. If everything is okay, I shared my screen, and right now you see the platform. And this is what we call the Content Exchange. We abbreviate to TCE. And this is the platform which you will see when you're an editor and you will check in to TCE. What you see right now is what we call the dashboard. It's an editorial tool. It works the same like Twitter. You can add all kinds of feeds. You can search for stuff, or you could say, I'm looking for a certain content source. We have many sources already in there, and you can create the feed you would like and see and check if there's any content you would like. So I could create, for example, a cryptocurrency feed. We right now work with over 60 publishers who are delivering their content to the Content Exchange. And what we do with all the content which we get is that we always will translate it automatically into English. For most Canadian publishers, that will not be a really add-on. But for example, this is a Dutch article which has been translated into English. So when you're trading on the Content Exchange, you will always trade, let's say, on an international scale. What a publisher also will do at a Content Exchange is define by which conditions you want to trade with other publishers or possible buyers of the content. And these conditions are set right here. For example, is your content available to all countries? Is someone allowed to modify the content? On what domains, print or digital, could you use the content, etc. So any buyer of the content will know which conditions would apply to the specific piece of content, and then you can download the content. I'm a logged-in user. I've got a lot of subscriptions, but typically you would also have a price setting for this. So we also work with the magazine Evo, which is a luxury car magazine. It used to be of Dennis. It's now part of Future. And here you can see the price setting. When you want to use the content, you can buy it for 250 euros. And when you say, I want to have it, then again, you see the price. You see the conditions. For example, Evo doesn't allow you to buy it in several countries. For example, in Argentina, you can't. You accept the conditions, and then you can download the content immediately. Concerning the pictures, if there's no credits or copyrights to the picture, you cannot download the picture. It will be always visible and with an exclamation mark, so you know if you buy the content, you buy it with pictures or not. We do it also for video. So this is the video example. You can check out the video and you can buy it. You can buy it or not. Well, buyers typically will log into the Content Exchange. they will have their personal dashboard set up. We always onboard new buyers personally, and then they get a dashboard with all the sources and all the subjects they are interested in. And we more or less trade content on many different subjects. So it could be health, could be do-it-yourself, could be on tech, could be on travel, or could be very topical like sustainability. And there are basically for a buyer 2 ways to engage with us. You can have a subscription, and that means that you have a fixed price to have some topical content from certain sources. You see here an example of a buyer who only wants to have all climate content, and their editors actually have immediate access to that content. They can see it, and they can check out the content if they like, and they can buy. And how it will work in practice, they will download it, and then again, they can publish it. And as you can see, this is an article. It's being offered by a publisher called Business AM, and it has been sold and published. This is the same article, but then it has been published on a Dutch news website concerning about all kinds of climate change. So in this case, you see there are 2 parties benefiting here. You have the seller of the content, which is Business AM. It's a Belgian publisher. They publish the content themselves in their own website and their own magazine. Now they're offering it to TCE. And we have a customer called Change Inc. They love to publish about climate and climate change. They do have a big editorial staff themselves, but that editorial staff, they want to have focusing really on Dutch stories. So everything international on climate change, they will buy from the Content Exchange. So they have a full 360-degree grip on all content which is relevant to them. They do not wish to create everything themselves because they know there is already good content out there which has been created by good editors. So we will license it, and it will be an add-on to our normal outputs we have on a daily basis. So that is the basic idea about TCE. It is not about getting rid of your editors or doing nothing more yourself. But when you are joining TCE, you are tapping into a really rich story base with over 100,000 stories and daily new updates you can license. And you can also offer, of course, your own stories and have all these kinds of cooperations. When you offer your story, you are in charge yourself about what's happening with your content. You get an account and a login, and you can see you can manage your own distribution and pricing. And you can do that by opening up your distribution and rules panel. And there you can see have all these kinds of settings where you can organize your own content. For example, you could decide then when you're a Canadian publisher, you do not want to share within Canada because there already you have your own business and you do not want to have your direct competitors, for example, working with your content. So you can include or exclude anyone you would like. You can have settings on territory. You could have settings on price. You could also offer for free. There are some good use cases for that. Sometimes a publisher wants to work with 3 other publishers, and then they start swapping content, saying, well, we are all active in the same area. For example, digital photography. We are all putting our content on TCE, and only the 4 or 5 publishers being part of our own network within TCE can use this kind of content, and you can use it for free. And TCE will take care that the content is being distributed. It is available, and very important, keeps count of who is bringing and who's taking the content. So when you're working in a network of publishers, exchanging content together, you can make sure that there's not someone who's only taking and never giving. So that will always be very transparent within TCE. So all these settings are made. And right now, TCE has over 60 publishers. We have buyers and sellers. Most of the time, parties choose to do both, to look for good content, but also to deliver content. And we are always looking for new options to grow, of course. So this is the platform, how it works. We started in 2020 building it. January 2020 seemed like a very good year to start something new. So we did just that. And from 2021 on, we have been busy with onboarding all kinds of new publishers and then driving sales. Because the more content you have, the more matchmaking you can do between several publishers. So what we say at TCE, good stories are made for sharing. So why not doing so? You see, obviously, many publishers, and James also tapped into that they are sharing their stories on Facebook, and they are sharing their stories with Amazon, and they're sharing their stories with Google. And mostly it's for free and it's not really benefiting you. So why not start sharing stories with each other based on rules, conditions, publication conditions, pricing? You can set yourself as a publisher. So you stay fully in charge. Who is dealing with your content? What is happening with your content? And it's a great way of content you already created to reach new audiences. It's been done fully automatically. So we work with content feeds and we will always help to onboard the content to the platform. It's a great place to get your story. So I know obviously this talk is about export opportunities. With TCE, you engage into a network with over 60 publishers worldwide who can see your content, who can license your content. But obviously, as I just shown at the climate example, there are two parties who benefit from exchanging the content. The party who is selling, licensing their content out. But in fact, the party who is getting the content in also saves a lot of costs instead of creating everything yourself. So TCE has two sides, and we always are very happy to see that both sides are profiting from working with us. For us, we can work with any kind of content you are offering to us. We experience in the magazine world that often there's only a PDF, for example, available. We can work with that. There is some price attached to that because we have to do some work getting the PDF into the system. As soon as you have all kinds of digital formats like RSS or XML feeds, we are onboarding it. And if you have nothing at all, we can provide you also with a content management system for uploading your content to TCE. So we will always be assisting that process. To be very transparent, of course, for us, it's very fortunate to have a very rich content base, and onboarding to TCE itself, it's for free. So you can set up your account and work with us, working with licensing the content, and we will help you setting all the distribution rules for who do you want to work, for what price can you work, and what other conditions will apply. There are many topics we already cover. We are a kind of you could say, a press agency because we always bring the new updates and new content. Though our main focus is not on the general news, our focus will mainly be on all kinds of topics which are surrounding that. And could vary from recipes to cryptocurrency news and updates to lifestyle and fashion to history. We more or less cover many of the subjects. And the interesting thing is, of course, we are always interested in all these topics and subjects which are universal. So we can work with a science magazine since if there's good quality popular science articles, they are true all over the world. And the same goes for good recipes or in-depth analysis on cryptocurrencies or good travel stories or things on tech. So we're always happy to work with stories which have a kind of a universal value or are in a certain niche because they happen to be reused quite a lot. We are a digital platform, but we also work with print. We have an exchange between a Dutch science magazine being published in Istanbul with the content. We have digital exchanges and also digital publishers using print content. In fact, that is quite popular because it's really fresh and really new and very in-depth. And many of the digital platforms often do not have the capacity to write these kind of in-depth articles. And if they are getting available, could sometimes even be archived content, which has a long history back, but could still be valid. For many digital publishers, it would be excellent to bring this kind of high quality content, which has been written before on their platforms and finding new audiences. And what we're also seeing is that there's interesting content marketing. Brands are looking more and more for great content. It has a lot to do with the fact that they want to build a brand themselves and attract audiences. And nothing attracts good audience better than great content. And when you're a brand, for example, you are a coffee brewer and you know a lot about coffee, and you sell coffee, a lot of it, and you want to attract audiences and send them newsletters and have your Facebook updates all the time, you cannot just show them cups of coffee. You have to tell something about them. For example, new coffee recipes, ways to make coffee, seasonal coffee, etc. It could be numerous of examples. And instead of hiring all kinds of editors and freelancers, these kind of companies and these kinds of brands are very happy to work with publishers who already have created that kind of content to license it. It saves a lot of money, and there's no expertise for making everything yourself. And lots of publishers have a lot of content in their archives, which could be immediately monetizable for brands to use. So the content exchange, I just showed you how it works. You make your own profile, your own dashboard on TCE. We always help doing so. You select content which you feel is very interesting for you, for your readers. You can download the content. We create a picture library for you. If you, for example, have a Getty access or other photo library accesses, we take care that you have the right pictures, and then in fact you publish. And that is how it happens that a Dutch magazine on popular science could be reused based on the articles there are in Turkey and publish it there. And in that way, as we said, great content gets a new audience and everybody benefits from that. We do it for travel, we do it for lifestyle, we do it for business, we do it on sustainability and climate. So there's many different topics we can handle. We also can help out and making all kinds of digital formats out of the content. So we also have a use case where a print magazine gets converted into a digital space. So in that way, let's say PDF content immediately gets a new life as a digital format, which is pretty cool to see. How do we help? We help out with onboarding the content. We are happy to work with web feeds or RSS feeds. You can also work with PDF magazines. We do have to work that into a web format, and some costs are involved for doing that. But there are no setup costs or license fees to start working with us. We help you selling your content, and we will distribute and promote the content. And the business model of TCE is that we ask a 20% revenue share on everything what happens. So the basic deal is only when you make a transaction, then we start earning, and we feel that is a fair deal to drive between the parties. And buying your content, of course, we support that when content is being bought, that an invoice has been sent. We know who the buyer is. We will inform you, and each month you get an overview of the deals and the transactions which have been made. Of course, you can also use the content for getting content in your own publications. You can do it by loose sales. That's a credit card deal. But more often we see that subscriptions are being preferred, or packages. Then you buy a bundle of content. And you could also say, well, I just want to work with some colleague publishers, which we know across the world, or build our own network. And then basically you swap your content. You upload your content, the other publishers do as well. And you could trade for even €0 between each other. There is some service cost involved for doing that for TCE, because there's no transaction cost. So we do charge a service fee for building those kinds of networks. So I would say just get started with TCE. And of course, I'm happy now to take questions. And for anyone who is interested in trying TCE out or see how it works for yourself, we make free logins based on your email address for anyone who is in this presentation and wants to have a deep dive and get your feet wet yourself with the content. So that is what I could tell about TCE, and I'm very happy to take questions from that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Joris. We have so many questions coming in. Let's start with the first one. It's about translation. So Wakang Chan asks, how are the articles translated into English on the platform? Does the platform use a machine or is it an actual translator?
No, we use a machine. It's called DeepL. We compared several translation engines, and DeepL we thought, in our experience, is the best by far. Having said that, still, we always recommend human reading afterwards. So DeepL will do for 97% a good job, a great job. Only these last 3% could be really wrong for anyone understanding the language. So if you translate from English to Spanish, for example, we will always recommend that there's a Spanish editor close reading it before publication.
That's great. So my next question was about language translation. So you did mention that it translates automatically into English, and now you mentioned Spanish as well. So there is functionality to translate from one language to another. It's not just English.
Yes, we can translate both in both directions. So most languages will be supported.
That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, so from Alison McGrain, I have a question. Do you have a number for how many Canadian publishers are on the platform right now?
Well, I'm hoping now to onboard my first Canadian publishers because we started in Europe. I'm a Dutch guy myself, so my roots are in the Netherlands. So now we have publishers from the UK, the Netherlands, Germany, Spain, Italy, Turkey. So it's very European focused right now. So I'm very happy with this opportunity and reach out to Canadian publishers to onboard as well.
Great.
So I hope after this talk, I really did my best to have the first Canadian publisher coming into to TC at the end of the evening.
That's great, thank you. All right, so Stephen has a related question to that, onboarding our Canadian publishers. So if a Canadian publisher wants to join the Content Exchange, how do they get started? For instance, how much time does it take to onboard and upload one issue of a typical magazine?
Yeah, typical magazine, I would say our experience would be 2 weeks at most. So how it will work, we get connected, and mostly it's good to have a connection to answer all questions. The magazine gets sent by us, could be with Dropbox or WeTransfer or other thing else. We will then process it. Mostly it will take a week through the throughput. And then we will connect with the publisher, the owner of the PDF, and to do together this pricing and distribution rules. So you know that it's been set. Okay, you can check it yourself, and then you're live and open for business.
That's great. So in about 2 weeks' time, if
I would say 2 weeks. That's usual. It could be faster, but on an average, it would take 2 weeks. Yes.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, so this is a question related to buying content. So what's the average cost for buying content? Does the Content Exchange provide guidance on setting these prices?
Yes, we do, because we gain more and more experience how it concerning the pricing. So what we see most is that loose articles are being offered for €100. That is, so we have to translate that to the Canadian currencies. But what we see happening is that when customers want to subscribe, then they say, well, I want to buy a volume, for example, 30 articles a month. Then average pricing goes to €50 per article. That is what is being paid for it. In exchange, there will be a volume of buying. There are exceptions, though. When you have more in-depth articles, longer articles, they could go up to €150 a piece. So it depends a little bit. We have a lot of, for example, lifestyle offerings, which about how to stay healthy and beautiful each day with tips and tricks and ideas. It's very nice content, but it's not that unique. Then they would typically be earlier on €30. When you have a more in-depth article about Mars exploration, it could go up to €150. So it depends a little bit, and we will give advice based on our experience.
That's great. So it really also depends on the topic of content and how niche it is.
Yes, it depends lots on topics. So, for example, many websites which have newsy websites, for example, they have kind of a lifestyle section. They could be very profound and very in-depth. Then they have the very valuable content and could be very interesting to price it up to €100 or €150. But often it's also content, the 3 ways, to start a healthy diet. Well, there's a lot of that kind of content around. It won't be that high end. So it depends a little bit in the market you're acting.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. We have another question from Stephen. If a Canadian freelancer or editor or writer wants to upload one video or article or image, any piece of content at a time, can they do that on their own every day, or does it take a week or two and need TCE staff to execute the postings?
No, that's a good question. No, so the 2 weeks is really for PDF because we have to configure a process which will take care of the right processing of the PDF. When you have digital content, or you're a freelancer or a small editorial team which wants to upload themselves, we will provide a content management system, access to it. Also, that is for free, and you can upload whenever you want and what you want. We will do, however, always a check on the parties uploading. It is not an open for all system. So we want to know with who we are dealing with to keep the quality of the content high.
Right. And does that check also, is that time window also about 2 weeks, the same as onboarding, or is that a shorter time frame?
Yeah, we always want to have a chat with the people working on TCE. So one of the TCE team members will always reach out to demonstrate, to take questions, but also to understand a little bit better the business and the background of the people we work with. So we feel that all TCE members, they like the fact that it is a quality environment, and they do want to know who is buying and who is selling. And so we are always aware who is active on the platform as a buyer or a seller.
Okay, that's great. So there's a lot of kind of quality checks and quality.
There's quality checks there, yeah. So we know that is appreciated by the users, that it is. So it could be freelancers. We have freelancers who are posting for themselves, but we know they are known freelancers. They publish in many known magazines or brands, and then we're very happy to onboard them. But if it is someone who has never published before anywhere, we will not onboard because we cannot be certain about the quality.
Mm-hmm. All right. I have another question going back to content topics. So is there a niche in content topics that is being underserved on the platform right now? For example, is there a real need for more business content or health content or DIY content?
Yes, there is, because what we see, for example, we have a great source on health content. But for example, if I already sell that in the Netherlands, I cannot sell it twice because then it gets, for a small market like the Dutch market, too small. So we're always happy to onboard more, to have a diversity on sources that is good for the buyers, and it will scale the platform as a whole. The most popular topics we see right now, they are, let's say, indeed special interests. So it could be on health, could be on lifestyle, could be on climate, could be on finance and the business side of things. And we also know that for do-it-yourself content, there is always a lot of demand. And to be honest, we're not that strong yet right now in do-it-yourself. So it could be a very good additional theme to have that up. And it's always good to know. Sometimes we get questions on very specific topics, and then we will always ask the publishers in our network if they do have content on it. So to give an example, I got a question about content about new ways of working, about how you meet, and then these new ways of working after COVID. It's very specific, and I don't have any sources, management sources on it right now. But it's typically, I would ask the community of TCE if anyone has sources already on it. I can sell immediately. So it's also sometimes demand, which leads the question to new publishers.
We have one final question for you, Joris. What would you personally like to read on the platform? What kind of content would you personally enjoy?
Yeah, well, personally, I do like all these lifestyle tips because it always gives me a good start of the day. So we've got a lot of heavy stuff and in-depth stuff and very quality stuff, but I always also like, let's say, a little bit of the lighter stuff which is around. And funny enough, then I can see a headline which really amuses me. Every now and then it gets solved that day, and then I'm very happy that someone else also thought it was very nice to read. So to start my day, I like the lifestyle section the most. Perhaps saying something about myself, but it's good to start the day with something light and new, I would say. So that's what I like. But all topics and content are very welcome. And for me, it's great to see how much creative production there is around. And what I said, the inspiration for me to start with TCE is that there's so much effort and expertise put in some content piece of work, which sometimes only reaches an audience of a few thousands, while there are 100,000 interested in it, but you will never reach them at all. And for TCE, there's a real drive to have these great stories, finding the audiences they deserve. So that is our main drive.
Okay, and Stephen wants to know, Joris, what is the name of the painting behind you? Is it by a Dutch master?
Okay, it's a Rubens painting, so you can find it somewhere in a museum in Belgium. And I liked it, and it's a bit grotesque. I hope it doesn't distract you, Stephen. But yes, it's van Rubens, so you can. It's a copy, of course. TC is still growing, but someday I'll buy the real one, I guess.